Hello everyone. Some of you may know me as in the name of Ali, champion of the tournament that happened in the Pokemon Chamber. Some of you may know me by the name Dragon or Admin Dragon. Essentially what I'm trying to do today is teach you a bit about what are EVs, what are IVs, what are nature, and trying to get you to become a better battler. What I've been seeing lately in the battles between Pokemon players is they just don't know what they're doing. They're just throwing Pokemon in. It's not a problem like if you choose your Pokemon that you like and you want to be good with them, that's fine. But at least learn how to trade them effectively to get the most out of them. I'm using right now an application called Pokemon Showdown. It helps like simulate stats and that's gives you the move sets. So I'm going to be using this a lot during all the future videos, and I hope you will actually get to learn more and more about Pokemon and how to battle. What I'm going to do today is start by telling you what are IVs, what are EVs, and how to manage these stuff. In the next episode, I'll teach you how to breed for these IVs and what are the best ways to train for your EV points and how to choose your nature, your move set, and all the future stuff. So first of all, I'm going to use Bulbasaur as an example just because he's number one. IVs are essentially individual stats. They're unique to every Pokemon. Like every Pokemon has a certain amount of IVs. These are altered by breeding. What do IVs do? A low IV, let's say for example, we're going to give it a 0, would be essentially, for example on Bulbasaur's 200 health. While if you had the max amount, which was 31, you'll have 231. Same, we're looking at attack and stats, all the other stats. Like there's a 31 stat point difference. As you can see, these stats, these IVs, can be game changing. If we were to choose like a strong Pokemon, let's say for example Garchomp, and we were to check how it affects his IVs, 0 points as well. 0 IVs, that's 31 stats that you control by breeding. These stats are essentially like they would be game changing to you. Have you ever had a point where you were doing a battle and you got 1 health left? That 1 health could be that difference between 1 extra IV or 1 less IV, 1 extra EV or 1 less EV. Every stat counts. If you're fighting, let's say, 2 Garchomps against each other, one with 0 in his attack, one maxed out, one is at 296 and one's at 265 attack. You ever wonder why I didn't do enough damage? Why couldn't I KO? Why was he able to kill me and I wasn't able to? We're using the same Pokemon, we're using the same move. Essentially, it's these IVs. Now, other than IVs, you have another stat that you can control. But this stat is easier to control because it's not done through breeding, it's done after breeding by training the Pokemon. These are called the EVs, which is effort. As you can tell from the word, you have to put effort with the Pokemon in order for him to learn. So let's say we want to give Garchomp the max amount of EVs in a certain stat. Let's say health, for example. Let's give him 252, which is the max. I think 255 is the max. You would essentially get 420 health. But if you had 0 points, you have 357. That is 63 points. You're going to be losing out. Or a bit more. Yeah, 252 is the max. So it's 63 points you're going to be losing on just because you haven't trained him properly. put that as well in your attack. Looking at it, we have 265 attack if you had 0 IV. But if we had maxed IV and we gave him full attack, you get 359. That is almost 94, I think, if I did the math correctly. Stats extra controlled by you from breeding and from training. 94 stats, that's huge. When we were looking at Garchomp with 0, that 265 with 95 extra stats, that's almost, you're saying, 50% of more damage you're looking at. If you were to do 100, you might be doing 140 now health instead of 100 and 100 damage. Now, back to Bulbasaur, because he was supposed to be the initial example. If we look at natures now, how they affect. Yeah, as you can see, there's a list of natures. Each one boosts a skill and reduces a skill. Or some, they boost and reduce the same skill, making it eventually canceling out. The boost is by 10%, and the loss is also by 10%. So you have to choose this stat wisely. You want your nature usually to support your Pokemon. For example, if we look at Bulbasaur, he usually has a high special defense and special attack. Well, if we gave him, for example, a gentle nature, increases special defense and lowers his defense. You went to 182. Your initial was 166. That 10% increase, that's without even applying your EVs on it. So that's an extra increase. Where is that gentle? There you are. So we're looking here at, I think, around 16 extra stats just by choosing a nature that supports his special defense. Let's say he had 0. Look how much decrease you got. You went from 160 to 148. 182, I mean, sorry. 182 to 148. Remove the nature. You go down to 135. That's 50 stats you lost. Add to it EVs as well. You're looking at a huge disadvantage you're giving your Pokemon. That's why some Pokemon tend to be more tanky than others, or some Pokemon tend to do more damage than others. Now, how to choose your nature. Usually you want to look at your nature, your Pokemon in general, and decide a nature that supports his role. We have 5 major roles in Pokemon. A physical sweeper, a special sweeper, a bulky Pokemon, a tank Pokemon, and a support Pokemon. A physical sweeper, as it says, he bases his attacks on physical move making contact with Pokemon. He cares about his attack stat, like Garchomp. His attack is way higher than his special defense. If you utilize that, give him, for example, an adamant nature, which boosts his physical attack and lowers his special, which you don't use because you want to make him a physical sweeper. And then you max out his EVs and then max out his IVs. You gave him a huge power spike in his damage. Bulbasaur, for example, is more of a special than a physical. If you gave him a modest nature, for example, and maxed it out, look how much difference it makes than when it was without. 166 with 31 IVs. Let's look at 0 IVs. 135. Then we went to 251. From 135 to 251. 126 stats. You almost increase his potential by 100%. You're doubling his power just by controlling his EVs. When you're randomly training in general, walking around in the Pokemon. Oh, you walked in a grass, you found something, a weird Pokemon, or anything. You generally get a random EV point depending on the Pokemon who you're fighting. Example, I believe Slowpoke gives health, Garchomp gives attack, Zubats gives speed, Ghastlies gives special attack, uh, Scraggies give physical attack, Gulpins give health. You can control these. You only fight the Pokemon that gives you the EVs where you want. Now, as you can see, 252 means 63 stats. That means every 4 EVs gives you 1 stat. EVs now are applied on the spot. As soon as you get 4 EVs, you gain 1 stat on the spot, whether you're level 100, whether you're level 0, well, level 1. You use proteins, you use zincs, you use calcium, you gain those stats on the spot. Now, unlike IVs, IVs are given to you as soon as you hatch the egg. The egg is hatched, these are your stats, this is how he's going to develop. You can't alter it. He's born like this. While EVs, you can change them whenever you want. Oh, today I want to play with a Bulbasaur who's more of special attack. I'll use something like this build. Or maybe I would go something more defensive. I would go with a Calm Nature, for example, giving him more special defense. It all depends on me, what I want to do, what I feel like playing him as. Make sure you're fitting the role. Is he a tank? Is he a physical attacker, special attacker, a support, a bulky Pokemon? Now, after we spoke about physical attacker and special attacker, we looked at the bulky Pokemon. A bulky Pokemon essentially is a Pokemon who can do damage, but at the same time can handle damage. Like, he's not always going to be one-hit KO'd, but at the same time, he can deal enough damage, maybe giving 2-hit KOs, but he will be able to do decent amount of damage, if not KO some Pokemon. Some decent examples of bulky Pokemon, in my opinion, are like Mega Ampharos. If we look at its stats, for example, where are you, Mega Ampharos? There you are. He has a huge attack. If I gave him full health and I gave him full defense, he's tanky enough, he can handle an earthquake, he can survive multiple types of hits, even fairy moves, and at the same time he has 366. If we looked at Garchomp with full investment in attack, he only reached 394. Ampharos is quite close. This guy is ready to do damage. Not as much as Garchomp, but he can do enough. And at the same time, he can handle damage more. He has more health, he has more defense, and he has more special defense. Usually, bulky Pokemon are slower. You mostly see bulky Pokemon either with a individual stat around 70 base stats, or at speed, or you could usually see him during a Trick Room team. Like, for example, how I use Mega Ampharos. I use him in a Trick Room team, and his low speed actually goes to my advantage because Trick Room essentially makes you use a slow Pokemon to go first. The slower you are, the faster you are. Now, a support Pokemon. One of the best supports Pokemon that I know is like Klefki and Meowstic. You look at Klefki, you see like he's nothing special. But he has access to moves like Reflect, if I can English today, Light Screen, Spikes, Thunder Wave. What does this do? Essentially, your Pokemon can help give your team for 5 turns 50% damage reduction on physical attacks, or 50% special damage reduction, or he can add damage upon switches, or he could cripple a Pokemon and uh, I think drop their speed to a quarter. I think Thunder Wave does drop a speed down to a quarter. So if you were 100, you drop down to 25. This is a support. He doesn't do damage. You're not supposed to be building damage on him. And he gives his team enough tankiness in order to survive other threats. Now, a tank Pokemon, for example, Aggron. Let's look at Mega Aggron. No investment, nothing other than max IVs. He's sitting nearly at 500 physical defense. That thing is not going to drop from any physical attacks at all. He's just too strong. That this is what we call a tank. You add to it even more EVs, give him some health bulk. Now he's healthy and he has enough defense. Just, for example, you are up against a guard chop. Just throw in the Aggron. Sure, it's super effective, but it's not going to do pretty much anything. My defense is like almost 1.5 times bigger than his physical attack. Even as a super effective move, that thing is going to barely do a third of my health. That's at max. This is essentially what's a tank. So now you saw special sweeper, a physical sweeper, a bulky Pokemon, a support, and a tank. And we saw how IVs affect and why people, you see when they're asking for trades, oh, how many IVs he has. And when a person is saying, oh, I'm EV training, why am I EV training? Or somebody's saying, oh, I'm looking for an adamant Garchomp, or a jolly Garchomp, or a timid Garchomp, or maybe a calm Ampharos. These all give you things you need to think of before starting your fights, before you start making out your team. You want to plan these things ahead of time. The more you plan these ahead, the more successful in the future these are. A last thing that most important in building a team, when you just at start, just think about your types. You don't want to have too much of the same weaknesses. Okay, some people may want to play theme teams, all fairies, all rock, all steel. That's fine. But let's say you're playing competitively, like you're going to championships or you're playing in the Pokemon Chamber tournaments. You could be like, okay, I have a grass Pokemon, a steel Pokemon, a bug Pokemon. Then I look. Sometimes I'm looking at the team and I'm like, okay, go Mega Charizard, use your Flamethrower or Heat Wave or whatever fire move. Your team is destroyed. And I barely even got a scratch because I trained my Charizard to be very fast. That essentially is me preparing ahead of time, having enough coverage against a lot of types. At the same time, when I run my team, I do not like to run a lot of weaknesses of the same type. Let's say we were supposed to make a team. Let's make a team. Let me show you my team. This is my doubles team that I use in a championship, the VGC championship. I had Reuniclus. I had Mawile, Mega. And I was running Ampharos, Mega. I run Crawdont. I ran Slowbro. And finally, who was it that? Aromatisse. if we look at this team in general, I have Aromatisse. She's weak against Steel and Poison. If I see a Steel slash Poison Pokemon, I would easily swap into Slowbro. He can handle a Steel, a move, because it's not very effective. And then at the same time, uh, Poison move, I'm Psychic. I can just use the move Psychic and I would hurt them so hard. Or if let's say they were trying to use Steel, I will go into my Crawdaunt. He would take the hit and then I'll go for a KO on him. Or even I can go into Ampharos, he can take the Steel. If I'm more afraid of that Poison, I can just go with Mawile. He just resists Steel in the first place. He doesn't even care about it. I have 2 Pokemon weak with ground. Oh look, I have 2 water type Pokemon who can handle this ground. This is a dragon Pokemon, here's my fairy. I'm fighting a dragon, that's my fairy. I'm fighting a fairy, here's my steel. Here's my steel, I'm afraid of fire or ground, here's my water. Afraid of electric, I can just go into Ampharos. He'll take electric attacks with the, like a quarter of the damage he'll take, but reduced damage because he's electric, reduced damage because he's dragon. And then I have Reuniclus, just all rounder for me. Yes, he's weak against dark. I built him enough to tank these moves, but I can just go back to Aromatisse to handle the dark Pokemon, or I can go into Mawile to handle the dark moves. Or I can even go in Crawdaunt. He resists him because he's dark. Then I pick my move sets. What am I afraid to face? Oh, I'm afraid of a flying? Oh, Ampharos, take an electric move. I'm afraid of fire? Here, have a water move. I'm afraid of a dragon? Here, you take Aromatisse a fairy move. Essentially, I'm covering my weaknesses with moves. My team is doing fine. Its weaknesses are scattered everywhere. It's hard to predict what I'm going to choose, especially since VGC is 4 on 4. You only have to choose 4 from these 6, hence why I'm running 2 Megas. I'll either run the Mawile or I'll run the Ampharos. This is Basics team, so just to make a small summary, IVs are very essential. You want to breed them. I'll teach you in the next video how to breed the IVs. I'll give you multiple methods. Hopefully you'll understand them well. Anyway, I should stop getting distracted. Here we have IVs. They give you 31 stats extra. EVs give you another boost of 63 extra. And then you have the nature giving you a 10% overall. After IVs, after EVs, you gain a 10%. And essentially, these are the things you're supposed to be thinking of once you have your team built. You got your team idea, you made sure you have your weaknesses covered, you have a team that can handle most of the types, you have an idea for each Pokemon. Is he a tank? Is he a sweeper? Physical or special? Is he a support? Is he going to be a bulky Pokemon? And then I'll be making special videos just to tell you, this is how you build a sweeper, this is how you build a moveset for a tank, and this is how you build a moveset for support. But now you have in general, you know IVs, you know EVs, you understood how natures work and why they are important, and you understood how to pick your typings and how to cover your typings. So now you're ready to start building a team. I'll leave this for a different episode, how to build a team. Tomorrow I'll make a video to teach you how to IV breed and how to EV train in Pokemon X and Y. Hope you enjoyed, hope you learned something. Till tomorrow.